Welcome to episode 40 of Book Nerd Paradise, where we get to know an author as they tell us one of their favorite quotes, read from their work, pose a trivia question, and give away a book or two. Hi, I'm LRW Lee, author of the Andy Smithson Epic Fantasy Adventure Series. So I'm very excited to announce that I just finished all the edits from my editor of book 5, which is Vision of the Griffin's Heart. So it's definitely on track for the January 13th release date. So I was also going to offer that if anybody wants to read and review any or all of the books in the series thus far, please contact me at linda.r.w.lee@gmail.com, and we can have a conversation about that. Just to remind you, here is book 1, and here is the prequel. So both of those, the ebooks, are available for free download on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Google Play. So if you haven't already, please do avail yourself of them. Today, I'm anxious to introduce to you Marcha Fox. She's a YA sci-fi author. Marcha's passion for science fiction began as a child, she says. While her first stories were written in 6th grade, describing her teacher's planets of origin, boy, she must have had some very interesting teachers. Her determination to write seriously in that genre knew no bounds, such that she went back to college in her 30s to obtain a bachelor's degree in physics. After graduation, she spent over 23 years working in the aerospace industry, most of which was at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. Science and engineering experience notwithstanding, it's the unexplained mysteries of the cosmos, such as psi phenomenon, time travel, and the concept of a universal consciousness, which fascinate her the most and provide the setting for her Star Trails Tetrology. She is currently living in the Texas Hill Country. By the way, a quick trivia note, a tetralogy is a set of 4. So you can try to stump some of your friends with that one. How about that? Please join me in welcoming Marcha Fox.
It's great to be here today. I'm very excited about talking to your readers or your listeners, and both of them, hopefully.
Very good. It's great to have you. Today, you'll be reading from your YA sci-fi novel, Beyond the Hidden Sky, which is book 1 in your Star Trails Tetralogy. So that we can get a feel for the book and the series, would you briefly summarize the story arc for us?
And it centers around the Bright Star family. The father, whose name is Laren, has been reassigned to a planet called Cyraria. It's a planet with a brutal climate, and not only a brutal climate, but it's got environmental and political upheavals going on as it gets colonized. Unknown to Laren, he's been targeted by these fascist political forces who are plotting to blackmail him into using his terraforming skills to further their evil agenda. So there's all these little subplots going on. Before the Star Cruiser, taking the family, which includes him, his wife, Shara, and 3 kids, even arrives at the new home, a series of very suspicious circumstances come along that scatter them all across the galaxy. His 14-year-old daughter, Krina, gets jettisoned from the main ship in an escape pod, and that leaves him no choice but to go find her. He takes their 17-year-old son, Dirk, along, trusting his wife and their other child, Devin, to his brother's care until they get back. Meanwhile, the bad guy, power-hungry Augustus Troy, and he's the one that's leading this effort to recruit Laren by whatever means necessary. He exploits the situation in every possible way. He pursues a plan to capture Krina as bait and make sure that Shara and Devin, his wife and younger son, are left destitute in this primitive shelter on this planet that's cursed with life-threatening weather extremes. When Laren and Dirk are battling space hazards in a vehicle that's been sabotaged, Krina eventually lands on this abandoned planet that's being bombarded by debris from a passing comet. So time and space are not cooperating with any of these family members as they try to survive their respective circumstances and never giving up hope that someday they'll be together again. But that is not only Beyond the Hidden Sky, but this is the theme that goes throughout the whole series. It takes them a while to get back together.
Wow, okay, that sounds full, I have to say, but it sounds like it could be very good. All right.
Hope so.
Very good. Well, we will definitely be anxiously awaiting to hear what you read today. Okay. You've selected one of your favorite quotes. Would you share it with our listeners and then tell us why it's a favorite?
Well, my favorite quote is the theme of the second book in this series, and the quote is, "There are no mistakes, only detours." And I like the concept of that quote because it teaches you to let go of your mistakes, to call them a learning experience and not beat yourself up over it, but call it tuition and move on, because it's always so counterproductive to just sit there beating yourself up. And so that's why I like that particular one. And I didn't consciously make it up. It was one of those writer's moments where it just comes to you and you go, oh, wow, where'd that come from?
Understood. That's awesome. No, I love that quote. That's great. And I also love those moments, the brief as they may be at times, of inspiration where you're like, wow, that sounded really good, didn't it?
Yeah, reminds you of Han Solo in Star Wars, where he says, sometimes I amaze even myself. You know, as a writer, sometimes that happens. You know, it wasn't you.
You're also giving away a book. What are you giving away?
I will give away 2 copies of the one I'm reading from, Beyond the Hidden Sky, and they'll be autographed by me and sent off to the winners as long as they're in the United States. And if not, then they will get a free download of the same book.
Okay, great. So 2 opportunities to win either way. So if you're in the US, you get a paperback. If you're abroad, then it's an ebook. Perfect. That's great. All right, so to enter to win, all you need to do is leave a comment about the episode in the comment section right below here. And also do me a favor, either leave a Twitter handle or some way to get a hold of you on Facebook, something like that, because I find that people don't necessarily pay attention to their YouTube messages. So if you're a winner, sometimes it's hard to contact folks. So if you're interested in winning, make sure that you leave that information so that I can easily get a hold of you. Okay? So Marcia, you'll be reading from your novel, as you said, Beyond the Hidden Sky, which is book 1 in the Star Trails Tetralogy. Would you briefly set up the portion you'll be reading from and then share with us?
Well, this is into the part where Karina is in the escape pod, and the escape pod is just about to its destination. So this is what happens when she gets there, and things are not exactly going the way she expected that they would. Karina settled into the nearest shell and secured the straps, eyes fixed on the strip screen. The pod vibrated stiffly, resonant hums and buzzes coming and going as the frequency increased. The console flickered then dimmed, the shaking so violent everything blurred. The pod grew still, the lights came back up, and something within the bowels of the pod whined. Entry buffers flashed in yellow above her head. She glanced back at the monitor and gasped. Caution and warning alarms blared, then a red heat load warning joined the entry buffers indicator, all punctuated by a stifling heavy increase in temperature within the pod. Perspiration gathered on her forehead, but the attention was consumed by decelerations and sickening odor of melted plastic. Her shoulders pressed against the straps until eventually the shell closed around her and tilted backwards, domed ceiling reflecting her distorted image in code orange, dominated by large frightened eyes. It didn't seem possible that she could stand more heat, but she did. Then more, and then more, and then more still. As if being cooked wasn't enough, G-forces long absent made an unwelcome return. Surely the pod was burning up on entry, a meaningless meteorite in an alien sky. Either that or she'd die of a heart attack, its erratic beat shallow and strained. Momentarily overcome, her vision faded to darkness, consciousness with it, as her heart struggled to get sufficient oxygen to her brain. Karina had no idea how long she was out, but when her eyes fluttered open, the retro discs were humming, the pod's descent more controlled. The eerie orange glare of the holoscreen had faded, replaced by a brilliant wash of lavender dotted with puffs of purest white. Then all was still, the only sounds, the subdued hum of control panel electronics and the laboring of her heart in what had become a very heavy body. The pod smelled as if every circuit wire and component had vaporized, smoke hanging undisturbed in the thick air. She lay there listening, breathing hard, hair flat against her face for the first time in days. She pushed it aside with a shaky hand, the simple movement an unexpectedly huge effort. She reached down to release the straps, hand missing the lever and sinking heavily to the floor. Slowly and deliberately, she succeeded on the next try, but felt as if she'd sink through the seat, no more than a glob of listless tissue. She clutched the armrest and tried to get up. Her elbows buckled, muscles unresponsive. She tried again, straining until once more a dark haze moved in from the sides in a clammy, heartless wave. She collapsed limply, arms hanging and head heavy against the seat. When she opened her eyes, sweat was dribbling from her temples and her heart had settled into a shallow, hurried rhythm. The database had indicated that Verderis's gravity was 15% stronger than her home planet of Myra 3, but this was ridiculous. She rolled her head to the side and eyed the entry hatch above. So this was what countermeasures were all about. Her colossal stubbornness had won a shallow victory. Now she couldn't even walk, much less exit the pod. She lifted her head slowly and looked at the metal stairs, remembering how she'd glided effortlessly from level to level during flight. Now it seemed like another life. Why didn't her eye tell her what would happen? Then she remembered. She had. She hadn't believed her then. She did now.
Aha! Oh boy. Oh boy, that sounds very interesting. I love all the nuances. So truly, your background from NASA informs you in terms of the weight of the person and gravitational forces and all that stuff. So that's great.
Well, what that really relates to is astronauts have to exercise very vigorously when they're in zero gravity, or their muscles completely deteriorate, and that is what's happened to her. That she had been told to exercise, and she is a rebellious little 14-year-old, and she's going, oh no, it's boring, I'm not going to do that. And so then she gets there and she can't even walk. And so it is definitely based on the NASA thing. And that time adjustment is a little sneaky bit on Einstein's special relativity. So I sneak this stuff in here all over the place.
Our guest author last episode, YA fantasy author Elise Copa, posed a trivia question.
So my trivia question was, what is the name of Severus Snape's father in the series Harry Potter? And the answer is Tobias Snape.
Marcia, you have a trivia question for us. What?
In the original Star Wars movie, A New Hope, what was the fictitious monster in the Trash Masher called?
Ooh, great question. And very relevant considering what's coming up this month. Ooh, cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, so Marcia will share the answer to this trivia conundrum next episode. So make sure you subscribe so that you find out what the answer is if you don't know. So Marcia, are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Just that it's so much fun to connect with listeners and readers and fans. And without them, writing would just not be the same, because we all want to share our creativity with other people and hope they enjoy reading it as much as we did writing it. I have a little bit of a hidden agenda, I guess, when I write, because I want to sneak that science in there. Science fiction inspired me to go into a scientific field, and I hope that maybe in some small way I can inspire someone else to do that, plus have them learn a few little things along the way. So that's my little sneaky trick that I put into my writing.
Which you have now revealed, so it's not sneaky anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I've had a couple science teachers use them in the classroom as extra credit reading, because they're not only fun and adventure, but that science is snuck in there. And I even have a manual for the teachers that explains the science that's in the books for them to use it. So I just want to make learning fun again. That would be my ultimate goal.
That's awesome. No, especially when you've got teacher resources. That's great. That's very good. Well, thank you for those words, Marcia. That's great. Hopefully you have enjoyed getting to know Marcha Fox just a little bit. As I mentioned, I'm LRW Lee, author of the Andy Smithson Epic Fantasy Adventure Series. Be sure to get your copy of Power of the Air's Passion and Blast of the Dragon's Fury if you haven't done so already.
Click the button to subscribe to the Book Nerd Paradise YouTube channel so you don't miss upcoming authors, giveaways, and answers to trivia questions.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I look forward to seeing you again next Monday.